Second. Okay. All in favor? Okay, that carries. And is there a motion to reconvene into our regular session?
I move.
Second, Dr. Yeager, okay. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Okay, we are at 10:15, and we are at our item number 13, which is the approval of the West Broad renovation.
Madam President, I have a recommendation. The recommendation is that the board approve a project that would include renovation of the minor street building, new construction of approximately 25,000 square feet for a building of early learning. This would include Head Start and early Head Start as well as pre-kindergarten, with the opportunity for a community partnership to Athens Land Trust.
Okay, thank you. Is it?
Oh, I'm sorry. And one last component I would add to the recommendation is that the board would select 2 members to be on the planning committee of this project.
Okay, thank you for that recommendation. Is there a motion to accept that recommendation that Dr. Meeks just presented for us? Okay, and is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, let me mention one thing. I know that Dr. Maddox mentioned that she would abstain because of the fact that she is employed with Land Trust. Let me say this now. When you abstain, according to what this board changed policy BC, that still can count as a no vote. I think the correct thing, Dr. Maddox, to protect you, the correct thing and the proper thing to do is to recuse yourself. When you recuse yourself, you're disqualifying yourself. Period.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was planning to do. I
Thank
appreciate you.
sir.
Thank you.
And anybody else that planning to abstain, I think that you need to recuse yourself. I think you need to recuse yourself rather than abstain, because an abstention, because of the policy change with BC, that vote can be counted as a no vote. We all clear on that? We're ready to move forward.
Can I say one thing? I just wanted to say for the knowledge of the people in the audience that the way that the planning will go is that first there will be the services of an architect, and that as is usual and customary with all projects within the district, that the board will approve all expenditures above $80,000.
Thank you. Mr. Davis?
Now, this is the final vote for the evening, right? Or are we voting on his alteration? I'm just confused. Okay, but is that the whole thing, or is that just the, okay. Then some of you have already heard my arguments, but I'm making them short and sweet for the public. The current proposal before us is flawed. First, the Early Learning Center should be on the old Gaines School property, not the West Broad School property. Having an Early Learning Center on the east side was part of the November 2018 Future Facilities Use Report, but now the idea has been put off indefinitely. We have 13 acres on the old Gaines School property that will no longer be needed to house students from schools that are being renovated. To my inquiries about the Early Learning Center on the east side, the superintendent said that we can still build in both locations. But herein lies the second problem. We don't have the money. In a public October 2016 presentation prior to the community voting on SPLOST 5, the school district was very clear as to how the money would be spent. Tier 1 on the list was to complete Oglethorpe Elementary and address the building needs of our 4 middle schools. Hillsman was rebuilt from the ground up, and Coral and BHL each received $16 million in renovations. Without even having a local building committee in place, the district leadership made the decision to rebuild, not restore, Clark Middle School and to put off the project for lack of money until SPLOST 6. Meanwhile, 2 new elementary schools promised in SPLOST 4 have not been built. We cannot continue to tell parents and voters one thing and then do something else with SPLOST money. A third reason why this proposal is flawed is that the Clark County School District is not in the best position to preserve the West Broad School. School district staff have made it plain to this board that the school district use purposes for the school district use purposes, what history there will remain on the inside of the Minor Street building will be the wooden floors and the wainscoting. The Campbell Lane building will be totally demolished. This is because the school district's first obligation is to the safety and well-being of children. There is an entire encyclopedia of federal and state regulations on school building construction. Finally, plans for the West Broad School have sowed much dissension in this community. This superintendent and this board need to step away and allow those trained at working with communities to preserve history be front and center. Meanwhile, may school board members be allowed to vote on building an early learning center on the old school Gaines property, be allowed to turn our attention to the needs of Clark Middle, and be allowed to return to the promise made in SPLOST 4 of smaller elementary schools.
Did you send it to us?
I will.
Would you? Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, okay.
I have a little bit different take on this. So the West Broad renovation project is the final version of the proposal that was first submitted to the board on May 17th, 2018. It was the shortest of the 3 proposals that were submitted to the board in response to an RFI, request for information, was issued in April 2018. My attitude with regard to proposals is, as a scientist, a proposal lives or dies on its own merits, in its own documentation, not on other considerations, not on what other possibilities might be, not on private conversations, not on relationships, and not on special interests. The May 2018 proposal from Ccsd included plans for, in order, historic preservation, expanded early learning opportunities, including 14 classrooms, a community health center, parent information resource center, and offices for other district services. But there was virtually none of the kind of supporting documentation that I expect to see as a scientist, and none that existed in another proposal that we received. I noted at the time, at the meeting on May 31st, 2018, which you can find online, that the first listed priority for this proposal, historic preservation, was not the top priority that the entire board had set for this project. Nevertheless, the board and superintendent proceeded with the proposal. The next round of documentation was in November 2018, when the proposal was included in the future facilities use report that was presented to the board. In the November 2018 version of the proposal, the plans included an Office of Early Learning Center, health clinic, parent information center, community meeting rooms, and historic recognition of education in Athens, Clark County. While the future facilities use report was lengthy, the documentation for the West Broad portion of it was still far from complete. There was a specific cost listed in the first FAQ, and that cost was $6,765,000. A third set of documents, the future facilities update that we received later in August of 2019, raised the cost estimate to $7.4 million and included plans for 20 classrooms. But there was no supporting documentation directly related to outside organizations in that. The board received a fourth set of documents, or rather a one-page document at the work session on September 5th. This executive summary included an Office of Early Learning Center with 10 classrooms, as well as renovation and restoration of the historic Minor Street building. But there was no supporting documentation for that. The summary indicated a new cost for the project up to $10 million, or rise of over $3 million from November 2018. The summary explicitly indicated that additional costs due to the potential of hitting rock during foundation and utility line installation were not accounted for in that figure. In addition, a complete soils report was not available. This afternoon, the board received at 11:22 a.m. an addendum to the executive summary. Clarification was made that the minor street building would house a student success center, a school-based health clinic, and community meeting rooms. One supporting document was provided, a press release from Historic Athens, and also a link to the year-old structural report for West Broad. And now tonight we have heard that the number of classrooms could be reduced to 5, depending on the agreement with, any agreement with the land trust. And so this is in context the proposal that the board is asked to vote on tonight. There are strengths to this proposal, and Dr. Means has pointed them out repeatedly, and I won't reiterate them. But as a reviewer of proposals, which is something I do in my day job, there are glaring weaknesses. The price tag has gone up by as much as 48% since last November without documented explanation. Additional costs are possible. If the presence of rock necessitates blasting with dynamite, the additional cost will be in the millions. Athens sits atop rock that's actually named for it. It's called the Athens Gneiss, G-N-E-I-S-S, which is a very hard metamorphic rock. There is a near complete lack of supporting documentation. According to an August 21 news report, quote, Means told the Oversight Committee there will also be a health clinic in the Old West Broad School with the Athens Neighborhood Health Clinic providing medical services there as well. May Walter, president of the clinic's board of directors, said Means is mistaken. Quote, that possibility hasn't come before the board and it isn't on our agenda, unquote, Walter said. Quote, we haven't discussed that idea. We want to first get the clinic at Hillsman up and running and see how that works out. End of quote, end of quotation from the news report.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
I'm not.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So this is not how a proposal works in my experience. Questions that we've referred to, such as lining up documentation from outside organizations, that's usually done in advance in my experience, to ensure that money and time are not expended in a doomed effort. And so I'm personally disappointed to receive this proposal almost a year and a half after it was begun without additional answers. I think there were opportunities to provide the board more clarity that were not yet, or have not yet been pursued. And so as I read it, as I read this proposal with nothing else on the table, it's a proposal that has rising costs, potentially diminishing benefit to student achievement if we're down to 5 classrooms, and no clear assurance of success. And so based on the proposal before us, in good faith, I cannot vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Davis.
So we've had a brief discussion about our own lived experiences, and my experience is in a Fortune 50 company where the return on investment is the primary driver. Every idea that comes before us came first with ideation. Ideation is where you sit down and you do what does it look like? What are the possibilities here? After the ideation stage, there's a proof that comes in from that. If it passes the ideation in terms of its sound, it makes sense, it's strategic, it's what we want to do, it's our work. Then it goes into planning. Only out of planning then in my organization did we get any details of anything. And this was done with the assistance of a person who is expert in doing the planning and development of something like this. I would think that where we are with this West Broad proposal is we are purely in the ideation stage because we have not engaged the architects, and that's the construction company that would need to help us get to those details that you're looking for, in my opinion. And then after that planning, came the development. It's in that development that any unforeseen things might come up, and again, you've got another checkpoint to see if this project is feasible and you should go forward with it. If we pass through development, the walkthrough comes, we can call that testing. And if we tested everything and everything did exactly as it said it would do, then we still have good proof of the project. Only after that phase will we actually implement. So in this case, we would be walking in the door if this were a construction project. So I'm saying to you, it is almost illogical to me to expect to have detailed plans when we wouldn't hire an architect to help develop. So I don't think this project should be evaluated on whether or not we have some output. We don't have output. We haven't done that due diligence. What we do have is the great knowledge and experience of some fantastic engineers that work for our district who are responsible for doing some of this due diligence on all of our construction plans. So I would ask you not to be too biased by the lack of detail from this very early planning stage. I do know that things change, life changes. Somebody might donate to us a $50 million building and all the resources that we need to do something else, and I wouldn't want us to be wed to having to follow this plan at that space. But for right now, the people that we have hired to develop a plan for taking care of this school district property have presented a plan to us, and I would ask that we support this plan to move forward.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, we've opened the floor for discussion. All of those that are in favor of the motion that's been made regarding the West Rock renovation project, if you would, show by raising your hands. Okay. And all those opposed, if you would show by the same sign. Those that are abstaining. Okay, and there was one that was recused.
So, to clarify, I believe that Dr. Maddox is requesting that Cheatham County is not present for this vote. So this is that. Okay, well, if you're not present, then you're not part of the denominator of the vote. So there are 7 votes for 1 abstention.
So it's between abstaining and recusing. Not present, okay? So, Tawana, is that what you?
Thank you, Dr. Maddox.
Okay, so based on what was sent to us, it looks like that motion carries. Okay, can I get a motion to?
Madam President, may I make one brief statement before, but I promise you it's brief. Every board member, we have a right to read a proposal, same as you did, Mr. Davis and Dr. Knox. But I don't believe that you need to blindside the superintendent and the remainder of the board members. If you had a proposal, you should have shared that with us far before we met tonight, or after we came to this room. That's how we need to operate as a board.
Okay, well, so I actually encourage, because I don't, I actually am open to having people provide their positions. And so whatever that looks like right now, we have not engaged in our board retreat yet. And so we'll have some more conversation around that, but I do I support that.
May I?
Sure.
I did not have, I spent as much time as I could this afternoon working on it. I was a little bit late, you may have noticed, because I was still working on what my opinion would be, and I hadn't even finished it. I was actually making some notes on it while we were in executive session. So it's not like it was prepared days, weeks, or months in advance. I listened to all the input, including the input of the public, so just so we're clear about that.
Well, I understand that, but I still think that you need to let the superintendent know this, and also the rest of the board. We don't need to blindside.
Okay. Well, we are working on processes to be a bit more efficient, okay? So we won't belabor these points, but if we can have a motion to adjourn, okay? And is there a second? All right, and all in favor? Okay, thank you.